Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to episode 136 of the Near Memo. Actually, it's only episode 16, and I'm here with Mike.
Only 16. I think that's quite an accomplishment.
Yes, Mike. What percentage of podcast does that put us in now? As far as longevity,
it's probably we don't know, but it's something better than the top 35%. So
yeah, so
we don't know how many stop at 15.
Okay, so there was a lot of news this week. A lot of it coming out of Google I/O, a lot of announcements, and Google opening a store. We're going to be talking about those things, but first we're going to talk about Mike's very in-depth and interesting look at the sort of trajectory of Yelp reviews. So, Mike, why don't you lead us into that?
Through my relationship with GatherUp, I'm able to look at review corpuses, both across large segments of businesses, like I did 2 weeks ago with the Google review ascendancy in the restaurant industry, as well as focusing on, and this one focused in on a case study of a resort, spa, hot tubs.
That you had been to, apparently.
That I'd been to, yes.
You spoke very effusively about it.
It's a great place. If you're ever in Santa Fe, this is the place you should go. They managed to pull off sort of new agey stuff without it feeling new agey, right? It was very peaceful, lovely place, great restaurant, great massages. Although I'm not a massage guy, my wife and children love them. And great little hotel with these sort of individual units that are very nice up in the hills above Santa Fe. Anyways, I was able to look at their review corpus going back to almost 2000. And it was just fascinating because Yelp is always claiming that it's Google causing their problems. And when you look at the reality of reviews, it was quite clear that Yelp never scaled as much as anybody else that was doing reviews. That Yelp never developed alternative ways of making money and using reviews as a feature as opposed to a product. They always use reviews as a product. Everybody else sort of used them as a feature, leveraged those to become successful, whether that was OpenTable or TripAdvisor or Google or any of the others. And so it's a lens on this whole question of Google's antitrust. It's one way of looking at it, right? The problem in the discussion about Google is you end up simplifying it too much. Google is a monopoly. Therefore, when this problem occurred, they must have been behaving badly. Therefore, Google's bad and we have to punish them is the argument. And it's not a good argument. So I addressed all those things in the article. And it's just interesting to me that largely conclusion, Yelp just never, ever really broke out the way everybody else did. And you need to in the internet to be successful.
You could make the argument that Yelp's product is advertising, and they've used reviews as a way to get consumer eyeballs to the site. I mean, they've been their sort of strategy until pretty recently.
Right, but they never had the scale to make that work because advertising that Google and Facebook do is at such scale that they can drive the marginal cost. They have no cost to an ad. Yelp has huge cost to an ad because they have such an infrastructure to sell it and such limited ability to deliver it, and it's not that well targeted. So they never had the scale to succeed at that. And it becomes obvious when you look at this that that's the case. I mean, so you could argue that, just they've never done it. And they can't really compete with the scale of Google and Facebook on that front.
And I think this actually gets partly at the crux of Yelp's entire business problem, which is they see reviews as their product, and yet their customers are actually small businesses. And so they're constantly in the, trying to play middleman between their customers and the people they depend on to make their entire business model function. And I suppose that's, somewhat the case with plenty of marketplaces, but it's rare, I think, to see, for example, eBay merchants getting up in arms about eBay policies, or Amazon merchants, up in arms about Amazon policies, to anywhere near the same level that Yelp's advertisers or would-be advertisers feel antagonistic towards them. So I think that Mike, it was a really great piece. As I said on Twitter, I think it's one of your best, most engaging pieces ever. I think really highlights a number of trends. Sort of the last. I feel like it's almost like the last decade of our entire careers condensed into one post. And
That's right. It took a long time to write that post. A lot of conversation.
You see the sort of Facebook giving up on local too early story. You see the rise of Google in local story, and you see the rise of transactions as a critical central feature of local with open tables. So I thought it was just a brilliant post and illuminating for a lot of reasons beyond just the Yelp lens.
Well, it's really a companion to the one that came before that about Google and how Google came to dominate. It's another side of that story. So both of those were terrific posts.
And in showing multiple sides, it starts to reflect some of the facets of this many cuts to the diamond. It's not a simple question, and it requires much more thought than most people give it.
Well, this is the central problem, I think, with the antitrust position, is that a lot of the things that Google has done, it has done well and right without intervening in an anti-competitive way in the market. I mean, we can point to things that Google maybe has done that are anti-competitive, but most of what they have done has really been pretty effective, obviously, and the reviews context is an example of that.
But this is after many false starts. Google Plus, the original problems they had with Google Places, right? It wasn't like Google just did this from the get-go. They had to fail 3 times or twice, how you count it, including their Yelp acquisition offer. So maybe that's 3. Maybe it's 4 if you count the GAD acquisition. I don't know. There's a lot of ways to count it. They failed a lot before they hit a successful.
So you're saying they could afford to do that. You're saying there's still a chance for Facebook then?
Well, I think Facebook came up with a better idea. They realized they didn't need reviews to convince businesses to look at Facebook. They were looking. And then Facebook reduced visibility of all business posts, thereby forcing them to boost their posts. They don't need reviews to get them to pay attention. They're getting money regardless.
Right. So
that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah. In quotes.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.